Beneath the weight of humanity lies a roiling black psychic sea, a collection of memories and emotions, wants and needs. And when a bloodied soul is cast into the waves, something comes from the depths. Something thrashing, something biting, something hungry. Something only responding to the scent of blood.
Hi, hello, and welcome back to CAIN, where you play as a psychic exorcist hunting down the stain of humanity's sins. Except, you're not always the thing hunting. Because yes, today we're talking about the Hound! Play the doom music! Blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne, there is a list and it must be finished. But yes, our third sin video, we're halfway through the list. We're talking about the second most lethal of all the sins, which is wild to say. Well, all of these are lethal in their own right. This one's just a lot more obvious in the killing. Because any of these can just bludgeon, like especially the ogre just crushing you, or the idol having its cultist mob and tear you apart. When it comes to the Hound, it's personal, and if it's not personal, you're just in its way. In either of those cases, it's going to be bloody and violent. But on to what spawns this stain of rage and bloodlust. But whereas the most killy one really is just after death to everything, the Hound has a grudge. It was born of a grudge. It was born with hatred in its heart. Or in the sin seed, if you think about it. Or the sin seed of the psychic? It's hateful. It's very hateful. And it has some specific people in mind to deliver that hate upon. First two are simple: who wronged you and how were you wronged? Adding into the whole origin of the grudges and how you initially had this thing spawn in the first place. But the third one throws in a bit of a curveball. What are you unwilling to sacrifice? But one of those last steps, one of those things stopping you from just going all out on the murder spree yourself. But these all reflect onto the specific Hound, onto what Hounds are in general. They are a thing of rage, hatred, and violence. They are living weapons, things that are just meant to hurt you, harm you, not necessarily just everyone in general, not a plague, not a pandemic of some kind, not a disaster. They are a killer. This is not some grand effect. This isn't space being warped to just happenstance kill people. This isn't the slow-acting mold or rot from the ogre. This isn't the idols, cults trying to bring you in. This Hound has specific people in mind, and if you get in its way, it will kill you. This is not a slow-acting one. It could be, but it's here to get a job done. It has a list, it has targets. Part of your investigation is trying to find out who these targets are to protect them, potentially. Or at least to stop the Hound from reaching them, to slow its progression down the list and its progression through the cat. But they're born from the beginnings of that list, from those people, even if it's not just entirely connected, even if it's not just the one person that spited them, or harassed them, harmed them, abused them in some way, either physical, mental, financial. It does not have to go far. One of the examples in the book is from a kid who was bullied. Just as the reason doesn't have to go as far, the exact extent that the Hound will kill doesn't have to go by any reason. In fact, it's one of the less communicative or reasoning of any of the other sins. All of them are a bit spiteful. They can talk, they can plan. Some Hounds can plan. Most are just here to hunt and kill. The most animalistic of the bunch, and that's saying something against Toad. Or even Centipede, the Hound is the animalistic one. This stretching to its usual forms, that's a bit more animalistic compared to the others. Ironically, never described as just a hound or dog-like. And one of the examples given is like a horse, or again, the xenomorph type thing. But animalistic in the sense of having a tail maybe, or other features that distend them away from humans, something a bit more naturally violent. Fangs, claws, walking all fours, skittering, literally shaking from the amount of rage and hatred they have. They need to act out on it. And it's not just the bestiality making them a bit more natural weapons with the fangs, teeth, whatever it is, or just bladed arms to one extent. Running on all fours, skittering around, attacking with teeth and the claws, even if they have weapons on hand. And this even stretching to the possessed ones. Beginning to act this way, this blind fury, this blind rage. And no matter the form, fast and strong. Not in the sense of the brute strength of the ogre or the lithe movements of the idol, but in the sense that it can get to its target and it has enough strength to kill it. But speaking of that hunt, its palace. Now, its palace is a strange one, because unlike the other sins, it moves. It moves along with its hunt, potentially reshaping, but at least changing its entrance every time it continues on to its next kill, making it very difficult to actually lock down in one location, outside of its targets. But the interiors of the palace are just a harsh, hellish landscape, sometimes incomprehensible. A long dead desert with the eye of the Hound in the sun actively staring you down with heat and hatred. Boiling acidic rain which is tearing down every structure within the palace and anyone daring to stand within it. Wild woods with the branches and thorns ever twisting around anything it can just draw blood from, attracting the scent of the Hound within. But outside of its interior just being a landscape that's harsh and dangerous. It doesn't have any more complexity outside of that. It might with an individual Hound, but in general, again, it's not relying on its palace or wallowing within it or using it to build it up in some grand hold for its cult. It is on the hunt. It only retreats there when it needs to, and makes sure it's defended. The entrances as well, reflecting the locations within, sometimes out in the wilds, burnt out car wrecks, ruins of other locations, this dry, sandy ditch, shallow grave left in the sands. Essentially anywhere that's harsh and ruined or wild, like abandoned industrial parks, junkyards, and the wild industry, or the literal wilds. But just like the Hound, continuing with the hunt, we have its pressure, finally. The grudges. So when a Hound initially manifests, it is made with 3 grudges. Even if it's just one individual that had caused the traumas in the first place, it will pick other grudges to go alongside them. Family members, people loosely associated, members within the same gang. That one bystander who could have helped at any time but didn't. And as the pressure increases, it will go after these targets. And this is actually something you as the exorcist can stop. You can halt its progress heading down these grudges, slowing its progress by protecting these different grudges, or using them as bait to draw out the Hound. Now, how Castle might look at that, I guess it depends the grudge and the Hound, and the exorcist at hand. But as they work down this list, they are not immediately out of control. Once the final grudge is fulfilled, that just means there's another, and another, and another. First going by the NPCs that you have met along the way, also along the hunt, people around them, within its territory or that had previously interfered with its potential hunt, or to when it runs out of control, everyone. There is no point where the list ends, as it rises in category and continues its rampage, not strictly bound to the shadows and a list of single targets. So yeah, you gotta stop it. But on to its other bit, its traces, the minor sins it can leave behind, the things that are a part of it. The myrmidons are made from the Hound's wounds, as its boiling blood falls to the ground and takes the form of another shade, a part of it, a warrior, another fighter, another weapon, literally made of the steaming etheric blood of the Hound. They are also here to just kill you, and they are not bound by the hunt. And also, just another tad bit, one of their special rules is, if you would go down to the brink of death, you don't. They just rip you in half. And speaking of tearing you in half, to its severe attack, apoplexy. So, per the usual, pool of 5d6, remove 1 for every answer that is yes to the exorcist targeted. Other exorcists can come in and help, but they're going to take damage. First question being, do you have a sword? Or at least something like it. Which is wild. I mean, it's not as crazy, especially when you look at a lot of the other art within CAIN and some of the weapon options. But just reading through, and it's not like an emotional thing or just having some kind of setup. It's like, do you have a weapon on you? Do you have a stabbing weapon? Are you calm, collected, and focused because this thing's rushing at you? Do you have a shield or something like? And is the Hound hindered, distracted, or otherwise occupied in some way? In either case, this thing is separating you from the rest of your group, as it's a one-on-one and it's tearing you apart. So for every dice rolled, you and whoever helped you take 1 stress. For every 1 rolled on those dice, the target takes an additional 2 stress. An additional 2. It's not 2, it's an additional 2. You'd be taking 3 from that 1 dice. And you are flayed in the attack. Roll on the flayed skin table, leaving a permanent scar. This thing isn't just fighting you or breaking a bone like the ogre was doing. This is not just trying to kill you in this moment. It's going to, or it might. This is making it painful. This is flaying you in the middle of combat. This thing hates you. But that's some of its more direct attacks, the myrmidons, its hunt, its severe attack onto its afflictions, the things it's affecting you with or the people around it. And the first up is Blood Rage. With this affliction, you gain an extra dice on any kind of physical violence or strength or harm or effort against someone, as that anger and bloodlust is rushing into you constantly. That's its catch. It's constant. You take stress doing any other actions while you are under this affliction. If you are doing anything other than fighting or harming someone, you are taking damage. Next is Bleeding Eyes, as you literally begin to see red. Not just in the sense of colors or in the sense of being able to see with grace, but your eyes become bloodshot. You begin to cry blood as you briefly see through the rage of the Hound. With this, you actually gain a psyche burst. However, you take stress also gaining that burst. Though this is optional, you're not actually forced, it's just an incentive. If you play into it, if you let that anger, that rage fill you for a moment, you gain a little hint of its power. Ganglia Fever, you are running a fever. You're running literally hot. You have 1 less resting die. That one's pretty simple. Boiling resentment. Now this one has an effect that triggers after the mission. At any time during the mission you had physically harmed a human, you can remove 2d3 sin. That's really good! However, if you do take that option, you add permanently to your agenda, make a human pay for their crimes. As it's not just anger. This isn't something just passively. There's a reason it's removing sin, there's a reason it's you, and it's a reason the target's a human. This is in the psychic seed. This is that internal rage, that stain, that want to drag them into the water. Blood scent, playing into that same frenzy the Hound gets with the scent of blood, the scent of its targets. Whenever any exorcist receives an injury, you can regain a psyche burst. However, if you do this during a mission at least once, which means you can do it multiple times, you add permanently to your agenda, taste blood. As you've let that influence of the Hound reach into you. Sure, you're gaining that power again, just like the earlier afflictions, but you love the taste. And lastly, we have the urge. Permanently add to your agenda, kill. Just kill. Just kill. Now with that, we head on to the bloodied meat of the matter. The domains. Every sin has 8, and you can only pick 3, depending on the sin. Usually these reflect the traumas, but they don't have to. These allow it to do more than just the basic sin. This allows it to do something special, or have another ability, attribute, or enhance something about it. And in the case of doing something better, this probably killing. Now, even before this domain, the Hound is already very individualistic. It's already targeting a specific person to have its effects against. Others are just caught in the crossfire, but everyone who's just been around the sin, even if they can't see it, feels watched, hunted, as if someone was just over their shoulder waiting to get them. And now the Hound reveals what was stalking them. It can briefly reveal itself to mortal eyes, those that are not graced. As the Hound does this, it literally feeds off the fear of others now. One within the general hunt, one against its grudges, but now the people. Whenever it has itself physically revealed in front of normal humans, in front of crowds, it grows in strength, size, bulk, monstrosity, more weapons, more jagged teeth, fangs, claws, becoming more of a monster that they fear. As it does this as a complication, until the humans are calmed or removed, the Hound receives -1 every hit to its execution talisman, so you're just doing less damage, and it receives a +1 on all its damage against you. Or not just you, but just its damage in general. It becomes more violent, that monstrosity side of it. And while it's doing this or using this domain, even you are affected by the fear. It's not just the fact they're graceless seeing this thing for the first time. That happens with any sin. This is something deeper. That lizard part of your brain is acting up. A fear that's not just biologically deep within you, but deep within the sea. You are not the most dangerous thing here or in that void. So whenever you go to harm the Hound, you need to take stress to be able to suppress that fear to actually continue fighting. So even without it directly hitting you, you're still taking damage. But there is a way around it. There is a way to permanently ignore this effect for the hunt, or against this Hound, but the admin gets to ask you a question. What is it you are most afraid of? As you go for this last act to try and hit it, to go past this fear, you briefly see this, or this image comes to your mind, and the admin rolls multiple risk dice, taking the lowest option for that attack, as it's nowhere near guaranteed to go well, even though you're immune to it now. The Hound is now resistant to almost any kind of damage that isn't severe, up to like a tank shell. Unnatural armor plating, just supernatural skin or hide not being able to cut through. Whenever the Hound is damaged, the admin rolls a dice, and on a certain result of 1 or 2, the damage is reduced by 1. Though, the Exorcist can get around it. You can use teamwork or setup to distract it to be able to get behind those bits of armor plating, or if you do still have those tank shells. Previously mentioned, you know, dropping a building on the thing might hurt it, or the tank. But outside of extremes and psychic attacks, mundane weapons are entirely useless against it. Because it's not just armor in the physical sense blocking your blows, allowing your teamwork to finally get around it. You still need something psychic. Whether it's going into your attuned blades or into your certain abilities, just breaking this massive fireball out. You need that psychic presence. Mundane bullets are doing nothing even when you go past its armor. The Hound is now cunning. You should be scared. As it's slowly stalking its prey, waiting within the vents, going around the bushes, the alleyways, the sewers, always behind you. It is not just blindly going after its rage, barreling through any target or defense against it. It is biding its time and waiting, stalking, hunting. And not only against its grudges, but against one of you. You heard me right, one. It's not all exorcists. When the mission begins, the presence of your grace draws the attention of the Hound, and you can feel it. You never feel easy, you never feel at peace. It is always watching you, you know it. And in some ways it is. It's not even just always physically there. It can be, but you can still see glimpses of it. You can still see its presence. You can still feel it. You know it's there. Once per scene and up to 3 times a hunt, the admin can have you catch a glimpse of the Hound, which doesn't have to be real. And whenever you catch this glimpse, you immediately take stress. And one of the funnier bits is that whenever combat begins, the Hound immediately gets a free reaction against you because it's been stalking you the whole time and preparing. And again, not the whole group, but the exorcist it's picked. But I honestly think the most dangerous part about this one is less the actual mechanics it's giving it, and more the implications in the text before the mechanics. It's stalking now. Yes, even your average Hound can have a bit more thought before its actual attack. Most don't, especially when they actually see their target. But now, knowing that just having this domain, it's stalking you. It's stalking the halls, it's on a hunt. And not a wild chase, but one it's preparing for, one it's waiting in ambush, one it's preparing, it's cunning. The dog's got a gun. Well, it can be wielding one, especially if it's the possessing kind, but most likely it's fused to it or emerging from it when it needs it. But the Hound now has ranged attacks. That's scary. Not only that, it doesn't have to require on ammo or actually making sense on reloading. It's bullets and weapons that are made of it, that are more that ethereal psychic presence. Still hurting you for making contact though. Able to actually pin you down, dealing stress or even more stress if you still have to move after that action. And with one of the stranger bits, it can once decide to disarm every one of their firearms within the scene. Everyone. Absorbing them back into itself and healing on its talisman as it makes itself more gun. Now this isn't terrifying from the sense of just, it's the fact it's got a ranged attack. That's a minor thing, at least within the general stats or its description, but that is still very scary. It doesn't have to get close, it doesn't have to come out of cover, it can be in a good defended position. And then it has a way of healing itself by absorbing firearms, not to mention, it's disarmed you of your firearms. Guaranteed, there's not a roll or check. And it healed by, it just fused to it. And also, after reading this the first time, I couldn't get this image out of my head. Now we have an issue. It's not just the pressure, it's not just running down that list and adding more people to it. Along its hunt, the more targets it takes, even just bystanders, it grows in strength. Once a scene, if it takes down a human, it heals one. If it slays one of its grudges, its max execution goes up by 2. Not as a temporary thing, permanently, for the rest of its existence. And if it slayed all its original targets, its damage goes up by 1, just across the board. But even before running out of control, growing in cat, this thing just grows with its initial hunt. And every scene can heal a tick in the right circumstances. This isn't some kind of tally, this is the sin reaching its true form, of getting that grudge settled, of becoming what it was always meant to be. Now the Hound is messing with people, not just within its hunt, not just killing, it is spreading that hatred, that anger, that need for a grudge. And not necessarily to a lethal degree, not like some of its afflictions from earlier. This just makes you despise everyone. As an exorcist are a bit more immune to it, especially not having been around the Hound for that long. That doesn't mean this doesn't affect you in one way or another, but at base, it's affecting the humans quite a lot. Starting with the fact that on this mission, no human starts out friendly to you. Just none. Sometimes they can even just be straight up hostile to begin with, basing that off a roll every time you meet one or bump into them. So difficult to work on the actual investigation or mission within that sense, but then you also have what it affects the exorcist with. So you're more resistant to this initial effect. You have your own psychic presence within your skull or your heart. But anytime during the mission, if 2 exorcists had a disagreement with each other, they can say it had boiled over, no matter how minor. After declaring this rift has begun. That effect has finally taken hold and you willingly let it. Sure, you can't help with teamwork or help set them up, but whenever they're injured or suffer an affliction, you regain a psyche burst, specifically the person you're feuding with. So yes, kind of like from earlier, that affliction which was if anyone was injured, or any exorcist, you could gain a psyche burst. With this one though, it's a little more specific in both injury, affliction, and specifically the feuding target. So it might be a little bit of an incentive to leave them out hanging. But oh, I love this one. Just that effect of the Hound heading over an entire region, not just an individual or afflicting someone directly in a fight. And becoming a bit more difficult or hard to work with other people, NPCs, or even each other, but with an incentive. So we have another armor one, which can actually stack up with the previous armor one. But this is more directly supernatural armor. It has a specific weakness. Is it silver bullets? Is it garlic? Cold iron knife? In any case, until you get that, any slashes against the execution talisman are taking a -1. And this isn't from nowhere. This isn't just the fact that, oh yeah, this is a psionic entity. That's what a lot of the execution talisman and the weird manifestation is in the first place. This resilience is based off the own personal beliefs of the host, usually following along just mythological lines, internal beliefs, whatever they thought was deadly. It doesn't really have to follow any real logic, but it does have to have a workaround. It's not just impossible or impervious. If it bleeds, you can kill it, essentially. So you can remove this first scene by finding and discovering whatever this effect is that works against it and setting up. The Hound gains a new affliction as it spreads its own grudge, its want for revenge, or this sense of justice to anyone it attacks, or just influences in some way, again an affliction. Though if an exorcist is hit, it can willingly take this affliction as a part of that attack. Willingly. But once inflicted with infectious grudge, you gain a dice to all physical attacks. Any kind of physical violence, however you do take additional stress just from any other external source. So, potentially dealing more damage, but take more damage. But that's not just its simplicity, it's the fact that you are becoming this raging beast. It's an infectious grudge. That initial spark of the Hound is now stuck within you. Not to the same targets, but anyone that slights against you. That stress you take, that additional stress, is literally you just trying to comprehend and work with that hatred you now feel. That supernatural force in your head, beckoning you, pulsing along with your heart racing to kill them. And that is the Hound, that want for death, that bloody slaughter, that specific grudge. A diseased twitching dog spilling molten glass made from the same sand of 1,000 desert shallow graves. A twisted rat thing stuck through with hundreds of bayonets and shrapnel working its way through the trenches, beginning with the captains then to everyone else in the front line. The hovering host's corpse spasming within the air as teeth jut from every vein trying to find any source of blood in front of it. Blood it doesn't hunger for, but it needs to spill. A deceased child host letting the monster out from under the bed. These are the shapes a Hound can take. These are the shapes of its vengeance that has no end. It is blood, it is rage, it is anger, it is hatred. This is not a thing that can be reasoned with. This is a deeper part of the brain, the recesses of the psyche, that pits of the sea that we don't want to look at, that reflection of ourselves that shows this warped monstrosity. While all things eat flesh and space, this has its grudge, this has its vengeance, these have a list of individuals. This is set on a path of destruction, not by happenstance, but on purpose, going down its list, which never ends. Execute it. Thank you for watching the video on the Hound. Ironically, a lot less into the actual effects, because it's quite simple. Both in the sense it's not really manipulating that much, only one of its domains directly calls that out. But again, the Hound is violence, it's the murder puppy. It literally has a list, if you can figure it out, to go to where it's going to show up. But yeah, we're halfway through the sins, and that means... well, that means next to Centipede. Anywho. Thank you for watching, a thank you to my patrons, and have a nice day.
Rip and tear until it is done.